Hi, welcome to Purpose and Profit. I have the honor of having the guest of April today. She's a powerhouse real estate investor, global talent acquisition expert, and expat investment strategist. She helps new investors break into the US and Portuguese real estate markets, mastering capital raising, buy and hold, and fix and flip strategies without costly mistakes. Through her investor workshops and exclusive Portugal retreat, April is making international property ownership a reality. So let's dive into how she's helping investors build wealth across borders. Hi, April.
Hi, Amanda. Thanks for having me.
Of course, of course. So tell me how you kind of got into this.
Into real estate or into the Portugal investment stuff?
The Portugal investment stuff, it's so different from what everyone else is doing that I think it is so interesting.
Yeah. So it actually started about 7 years ago. And it actually wasn't my start. It was my brother's start. He moved to Portugal because of work, ended up there because he needed to be close to the beach and close to waves. He's an investment banker slash, fractional C-level executive. And he helps a lot of companies that have at least, 5 million or more in funding go to market. And so they asked him to move to London for that from San Diego. He was like, I'm not leaving the beaches of San Diego for London, but I will go to Portugal because there's waves there. So that's how that started. So he ended up, acquiring a property and going through all the motions. And it just so happened that there were lots of land next to the home that he purchased, and it was the same owner. So the person he purchased the house from also owned those lots of land, but he wasn't ready to sell those lots of land at the time. And my brother said, well, in order for me to buy this house, I'd like the first right of refusal because anyone who builds there will impact my ocean and beach view. So several years later, 2022, he was ready to go ahead and sell those, the guy who owned them. And my brother asked me if we were interested in purchasing them. And yes, of course we were. So it's now 3 lots of land and we're building 3 different homes on them. And we're just about at the shovel ready phase after all this time. So we've learned a lot as citizens, not only looking to do financing, looking to do creative strategies, because we also have a creative deal in Cash, which is just a hybrid seller finance and sub 2. And so we've been testing out the strategies that we use in the US in Portugal and see how we can make them work. And that's how it's kind of grown into what it is today.
That's incredible. Were you anxious about just starting in a foreign market? And I know that some countries, the rules are so different. Like you said, you guys are just now getting to the point where you're breaking ground. How did you feel kind of walking into that space?
I was super nervous because the way that they do real estate transactions in Portugal is there is no escrow. So what I did was I literally wired the seller all of the money 2 days prior. And then it's like, yeah, I'll see you at the lawyer's office in 2 days. Now, we've gone through this transaction and we trusted the guy because my brother knew him, built a relationship with him over those several years. So we weren't really concerned. But we later realized we can recreate some of the instruments that we use to protect ourselves. We can recreate those in Portugal. They're just called something a little bit different, and we can experience those protections. But in the beginning, we didn't. So over the course of it was like 3 wire transfers, 6 figures in wiring. Yeah, I was like, I hope he shows up. So.
That is wild. And thank goodness that's not a horror story. Everything worked out well.
Yeah, it's fine.
That's awesome. So are you guys planning on living in the properties, or what is it's like right next to your brother, which is very cool. So what's your idea with that?
So one of them is ours, meaning mine and my husband and my family's. And so we'll likely be there for a month or 2 in the spring and then a month or 2 in the fall. And then that house, which is, we call it the top lot because it's the top of the mountain and it has the best view, is that we will rent out to, like our friends and family and kind of like an exclusive VIP Airbnb type model, but not putting it on the public market. It's just by recommendation and referral because our house will be different than the others. So then the second house is actually my brother's second house. He does have a lot of guest stay. He has a big house and that even gets full. And so he'd like to go ahead and have that as a second home. And then the third house, we actually split 50-50. So that will be an Airbnb on the normal like public platform. And because there's such close proximity to my brother, and then we have a house right there and we'll likely be there some of the time, we thought it was a good strategy because it's a really good market still for Airbnb. It's still thriving. It has a lot of tourism. It's a 10-minute walk to the beach, just straight down the hill. And so we expect it to be, a pretty good situation. And if not, we'll just pivot out of it and do something different, but we'll start with Airbnb.
That's amazing. And speaking of pivoting, I want to pivot real quick because one of my favorite things about you is it's funny that you're doing this deal with your brother because you actually work with your kids in your business. And so briefly, and so I love that it even like ties into your brother. It's even bigger than I realized. And so what is that like to experience? Like a lot of people do this to create legacy and to work for their family. And like you're creating this beautiful thing that you're working with your family to build everything.
Yeah, well, it's even bigger than that too. And so I'll explain that a little bit more. So we started real estate investing in Portugal instead of the US first, which is kind of would seem a little bit backwards. But one of the reasons that we did that is because through the experience, we figured out in Portugal, when you go to the bank and you get like a mortgage or you get financing, what they do is they have you do a medical assessment. And during the medical assessment, they determine, how long they're going to lend to you for. That's one of the things, because based on your age and your health and everything. The other thing that they do is they take out an insurance policy on you. So if you were to pass away before the loan is paid off, that insurance policy pays off the loan and that asset automatically goes to your heirs. So I loved the way that they focus on, making sure that that stays in the family or your intention for the property, kind of continues on versus maybe going into probate and maybe ending up on a pre-foreclosure sale or whatever, or a foreclosure sale. That it doesn't happen like that when you've got these things in place. So I loved that it kind of had the family in mind when you're purchasing real estate. So, and it just happened organically. So my husband and I have 5 kids. They're all adult kids. The oldest is 30, the youngest is 19. So my oldest is really into land. He has he's in specialty coatings engineering, but he's really into land too. So as a hobby, it's land. And then his wife is one of our transaction coordinators. She's a top tier TC. She was in there day one when it launched. And so she's a great asset to the team. And then my second oldest and my third oldest, they're PMLs. One lends on EMD, the other one lends funds for, towards renovations. And so my daughter, she's a nurse. She just keeps putting money in and she's just so addicted to how she's putting her money to work in this way that they're money lenders. And then my fourth child is 20 and he's outbound. So he's working with sellers and agents. And then once he gets, someone engaged, then when it comes to have the closing conversation, that's me. I come in and close, button up all the details. And then, my husband goes in and he's doing the construction management and then I do the design. So we just come in and do all of the things that we like to do and that we have fun doing. And it just so happens everybody likes a different aspect and it works really nicely together. Now, of course, I'm open to partnering with people outside of my family, but it just so happened that all of these pieces are coming together. And then my youngest is already monetized on YouTube. So he will evolve to be my YouTube manager, which is something that I'm working on, focused on for the next 3 to 4 months. So yeah, that's how it's all working.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I love that. And it's crazy that you started in Portugal first. Like most people are like anxious to buy in the United States, let alone buying, so far away. Is there anything other than it kind of blows my mind that you just sent money to the seller. I'd have definitely like breathed in a paper bag on that. But is there anything in the process that you realized later that you want to make sure that other people don't kind of step on those landmines? Like, I know that you want to guide and help people. So what do you think are like the biggest, like, you need to know what you're doing when you're walking in this space?
Yeah, you definitely need to, I would say, first off, you need to just kind of adjust your mindset and prepare to have to be strategically patient because things take a long time in Portugal. And part of it is because they prioritize, culture and family over anything else. So they just have a different pace of working and getting things done. Not right or wrong, just different from us. So that is probably the biggest adjustment. But then also just remembering, although it seems very logical and, steps 1 through 10 here in the US, that is not the case at all. In Portugal, it's totally different. And one other expansion on my family team is my niece, who is also my part-time executive assistant. She now speaks Portuguese fluently. She's 21, 22. But she is evolving to be our international transaction coordinator. So she's already done things like gone to the finance office for me in Portugal or paid tax or whatever the things that have to be done. That's often you have to be able to do them in person. So if you don't have somebody that could be your liaison or boots on the ground there, I would say it's very, very, very important to have some type of structure or team or person in place, or even a professional. Some attorneys offer that service, kind of like we have a registered agent for our LLCs. They'll go ahead and they'll act on your behalf. Attorneys will do that in a similar capacity for you. I would say those are some things that were clutch and key. We just kind of were like, what's the next step? Okay, let's figure it out. What's the next? We didn't necessarily know the next 10 steps, or when we did and we thought we knew what they were, there's like step 3, A, B, C, and D before you even can get to 4. And you don't know that until you get there. So we've explored those in a variety of different type of real estate strategies or scenarios, and we've documented it. And I've put together a checklist. That's one of my freebies. It's something that, I can send over, but yeah, there's a free checklist to help people go through to just help them wrap their mind and around what it is that they need to be prepared for. And then there's, we can do deeper dives in workshops. And then I have an ebook that's almost finished on that. And there's more resources for people.
That's incredible. And I imagine just the boots on ground is so invaluable. And the fact that you guys have that. So we'll definitely put the link for your checklist in here, but I imagine most people that are interested in the space should definitely just reach out.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay. So what do you want to, like, what is your vision for like your space in Portugal or even in the United States? But I know you're leaning a lot into that.
Yeah. So I would say vision, big picture, it does include a lot here in the US because my family is largely focused on getting things done in the US. So a lot of what we're doing is we are doing fix and flipping, and then we also are doing some buying and holding here in our immediate area. So Delaware, Maryland, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and then we'll do kind of like the New Smyrna Beach area in Florida, just because we have experience and boots on the ground and family there too. And so we are acquiring properties, depending on the property, either if it doesn't fit within our criteria to fix and flip it, we'll wholesale it. I wouldn't say we're wholesalers. We just wholesale on occasion. Or we'll fix and flip it, or we'll fix and hold it and ultimately sell it to an end buyer, maybe like on a lease option, just help people overcome the barrier to home ownership in some ways. And so that's a lot of what we're doing. So, we have some numbers and some targets along those lines just to help people get that pride in ownership and have that available to them. And then similarly in Portugal, help people not that they necessarily need to go buy a castle, although there are castles for sale, which is totally insane to me. But, they might just want either an apartment or, just a small, whatever, just a little like beach getaway in Portugal and experience all of the benefits of living there because your money goes a long way there. The food is a lot easier to access. Well, the clean food is a lot easier to access there. And it's a lot simpler in a lot of ways. Not always, but in a lot of ways. And so it's just helping people kind of bridge that gap, get rid of the overwhelm, and actually have them experience that a little bit more sooner than they might have on their own. So that's really all it is just an assist for people who have that interest. And then eventually you can become a Portuguese citizen or have some type of residency, and you can typically, go about the EU countries freely as much as you want from Portugal, just like we drive through states here. So I've discovered that that's a lot of people's like either bucket list or wish list item that they're like, I've always wanted to. And it's like, well, you can, and it's a lot less daunting than you think. But and so we help people with that. And so our workshops are here in the US for people who just want to like dive deep and do it here from the US. But then also twice a year in April and in September, we do a 7-night, 8-day complete immersion in the Portuguese culture. Go look at real estate, meet a lot of our professional team, our architects, engineers, GC, attorney, accountant, agents. We actually opened up a company in Portugal. So it's a real estate company there. So we also have that going on. There's a lot of stuff moving. Yeah.
There is. That's incredible. And I love the immersion. Like, I have to imagine that anyone that shows up no longer has any doubt that that's a good space for them.
Yeah. It's either to rule it in or rule it out and like get a vacation in, because it's not like all work inside, because that would be kind of silly to be in Portugal and be stuck inside all day. So a lot of it is like, maybe a little bit of a workshop for a few hours. And then we go out into Portugal and what's it like to be at a restaurant, at a gas station, at a grocery store? There's activities, there's a free day in the middle for people to do whatever. And then you can choose your own adventure afterwards. If you're like, hey, I'm already over here, now I want to drive into Spain or go to Italy or Germany, wherever you want to go. We have these little like choose your own adventure, little free things that they can add on and do if they want to do, just an extended stay.
Yeah. Well, and I think the other benefit to having you, I think you brought it up earlier, but is like a lot of times what we realize, my daughter travels a lot, and like there's a lot of cultural differences. Like you said, like they just work at a different pace and like they view things differently. And I think a lot of that is probably important, that not even just the initial purchase, but like you said, working with contractors, working with things like that, having an understanding walking in. And I'm sure that you can set those expectations and you can kind of guide like the best way to approach this or do that, because I think it's really important for long-term success if you're owning properties to ensure that you're meeting the people that you're working with where they're at, instead of having like the expectation just because that's how we do it in the United States.
Exactly. And that brings up a good point, because I would say if someone on your if someone on your immediate team or friend group that wants to participate in this, you need to come in as like a senior level project manager, right? Or a senior level like transaction coordinator type, to look down the road and then also follow up to make sure things are done at a certain time. There's been times when I've said, okay, this fee is paid. This is with the person who has to do the acoustics. They're just going to get back to me when they're done. No, like you have to follow up with them and you have to say, yes, you said you could do this week and it's now 3 weeks later. Where are you? Right. So you have to have those attributes of a project manager. You don't officially have to be one, but some people naturally have those attributes and they're good with follow up and follow through. That is critical. That is critical for anybody doing that or pursuing this, because if you don't, it just extends the time for you to get things completed. But yeah, you need to have a really, really good project management like hat on.
I bet. Okay. So How does everyone get a hold of you that wants to engage with you and your team or go to your workshops, whether in the United States or Portugal? How do they get a hold of you best?
Yeah, so the easiest way is I'm at April Elias pretty much everywhere. So I would say Instagram, X, Facebook. Well, actually, I think I have my maiden name in there too. It's April Reynolds Elias. But you can find me in any of those places. Also, my website is just aprilelias.com. And that's actually going through a revamp, and it will have all the pointing in all the right directions. And then I'll just provide the link for the free checklist for people to at least start exploring that. And then my YouTube channel, same thing, at April Elias.
That's amazing. Do you post a lot of pictures of Portugal?
I do.
Yeah. Oh man. So I love the idea of travel. I got too many little people at home right now, but I do love that. And I do love that in Europe, you can just kind of park in one spot and explore everywhere.
Yeah.
So very cool.
Yeah. This is
Well,
fun.
thank you so much for coming on today. Do you have any last minute comments or anything for anyone out there?
Yeah, I mean, I think we covered it. I love, sharing my knowledge around this. So if anybody needs any help at all, please feel free to reach out and we can schedule some one-on-one time together or just shoot me a message if you have a question. But yeah, happy to help anyone who's interested.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, April. And I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks. You too. Take care.